Good morning, everyone. So yeah, my name is Pomerantz, and I may be a little bit biased, but I think entomology is one of the most important fields that we have in the biological sciences. And I've just sort of been setting off on this journey a little bit, getting into the science communication realm. And I hope that today I can share this personal story. A lot of it involves, whereas Gwen touched on a lot of written material, I think a lot of it is more visual and social media oriented. So this is really just sort of like my personal journey since my master's degree so far in the last couple of years. Transitioning from a master's degree at the University of Florida in molecular biology into working in the Amazon rainforest and now into some sort of hybrid combination of research and media. So I want to touch on just sort of that journey and then how science communication can benefit all of you, and then maybe some strategies and then some other future directions that are going on with ecotourism, which I'm really excited about. So this is just sort of proof that I did a master's degree. So I was at the University of Florida, and my lab sequenced the genome of this predatory mite, Metacilus occidentalis. It's a really good biological control agent. We did a lot of really cool molecular work. I was trying to pick apart the sex determination pathway. And if you see that little guy in blue, that's because we fed him double-stranded RNA, which could actually induce gene knockdown. So really fun stuff, but then it transitioned into working out here. And I'll get to why in a second, but what you're looking at is sort of the port to Tamaulipas, Peru. So this is in southeastern Peru, it borders Bolivia and Brazil, and it's a beautiful place. You'll see in the bottom panel, in that right corner, y'all see that? So that is the Tamaulipas Research Center right there. It's a beautiful place. This is a nice aerial shot, and it's one of the coolest places I've ever had the privilege of working. So most people go here because they want to see these animals, right? You want to see elusive jaguars or parrots or the howler monkeys. So this attracts a lot of ecotourists every single year to this destination, but I first went for this guy. So this is what's called the Decoy Spider. And you can see that this little guy sitting right there at the top. So that's a little spider, and you can probably notice he's constructed something that looks similar to another spider. This was really, really cool. But maybe more importantly, this had never been observed before, but it also really picked up on social media. So this is attributed to Phil Torres, who first made this observation, and he was out with Destin, who makes Smart Everyday videos, maybe you guys have seen. And also Nadia Drake, another science writer, came out to report on this, and this was one of the top stories in Wired magazine for that year. So if you think about it, that's pretty crazy, like that a spider got so much media attention to the general public. And I think this was really an indication to the ecotourism company that they were like, wow, like people are really into this stuff, so maybe we should support scientists coming out here to make more discoveries. So that's what I did. I went out with Larry Reeves, who's another PhD student at the University of Florida, and we went out to investigate the decoy spider a little bit more to figure out what species is this, why is it building these structures. So we know that at the very least they build two different types of stabilementa, these structures that they make in their webs. The more common ones are these straight line stabilementa, but then we were checking out the decoy stabilementa, and I was just spending a lot of time documenting all the different types out there, the variations in these stabilementa, really just to figure out, how many different species of these cyclosa spiders are out there. But again, this is just sort of investigating this really cool behavior that was stumbled upon and was a big hit in the media. While I was there, I was offered to keep coming back. And I was, again, finishing my master's degree. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with my life, like many of us do after we graduate. But this seemed like a really cool opportunity. And, but I also wanted to tell, the stories that occur out there in the jungle. So like, this is Bothrops atrox, the pit viper, and you get bit by a lot of mosquitoes and ants and termites. But again, I wanted to tell these stories. So what I did was I invested in some SLR equipment. A lot of it is macro photography. Again, bugs are really small. But maybe more importantly than the equipment, I was really lucky to work with professional photographers. So like in the bottom panel, here's Jeff Kramer with his giant 800mm Canon lens. This is Lucas Bustamante, and I was out with him in Ecuador a few months ago. So I learned a lot from these guys. And this is a compilation of some of the really cool arthropods that we investigated over the last year. Up here you'll see these are glowing larvae. These are beetle larvae. Gwen covered these, which I'll mention in a second in Wired. Over here we have the web tower structure that again got a lot of weird media attention. It turns out that it's this little spider that pops out. Only about 3 seem to pop out of this web tower structure, which is totally weird for a spider, right? So even now we don't know what species it is. No spider expert can ID it. These are a couple of new life histories for butterflies that we discovered, so I'll talk about this one a little more in a second. But again, it's so much fun just being an entomologist, getting to work on whatever the heck you want out there in the rainforest. And I'm just curious, have any of you seen these stories in the media? Like, raise your hands really quick. So that's a lot of you. And maybe you did because we really wanted to take these and get it into these popular articles, right? Like, not just scientific write-ups, but out into the world. So I also got to do some television work. So here I'm talking to the BBC for a television show called Nature's Weirdest Events. I got to do that again recently. You'll see Glowing Predatory Graboids in the top right, which is a fantastic title by Gwen. And not just, and also BuzzFeed, YouTube, National Geographic. So again, this is really what we tried to do, is like do science and research, but then get it out there to the world. I collaborated with Phil Torres, who really is like found this incredible relationship between an adult butterfly and ants. So we published this in the Journal of the Lepidopterist Society, but that wasn't the last step. Publishing was just the beginning for us. So we really wanted to promote it when the publication came out. We got it up in National Geographic and many other sources. We did a YouTube video, which was really just a walk and talk, summing up. It was sort of like a video abstract, we thought of it as. It was a lot of fun. We did a Reddit AMA. Just like, these are indications that this stuff is really popular with the general public. They want to ask scientists questions. So it was a top trending hit on Reddit. And also, if you look at the journal, it's one of the most read articles in the journal now, for what it's worth. So this stuff really can feed back into how people view the research that you're doing. So how can this benefit all of you? I think, Gwen touched on more writing, so I'll mention, maybe more photo and video work. But really quick, just, what are the cons to this? Research takes a lot of time. Academia takes a lot of time. And maybe you don't see an incentive. Maybe you can't spare that much time. There are trade-offs, for sure, for doing stuff that's not your research. But I think there can be a lot of pros, which I'll touch on. So you can potentially get more grant money, freelancing, extra cash, which Gwen touched on. For me, I can get field expenses paid for, which is a really big plus working with these ecotourism outlets. But then there are also intangibles, like I found my PhD program that I'm in now just through Twitter, random intangibles. And also having that creative outlet, I think is really healthy for us as scientists. When I was working in the Amazon rainforest, I didn't have a lab, I didn't have any money, and I didn't have the tools required to do a lot of scientific research. So in many ways that was a disadvantage, but it turned into an opportunity because I just started to seek out, okay, what tools are out there that are portable for field work? That's how I got involved with the Foldscope. This is an origami-based microscope invented by Stanford researchers. And this was really cool. This was also a popular story when we investigated these like tiny organisms out in the Amazon rainforest. And then I also got involved with the Oxford Nanopore gene sequencer, maybe you guys have heard of. So it's a portable gene sequencer. And so it really helped spawn this idea of like, let's create a lab in a suitcase and go out to the field. I also found a funding source, so National Geographic Weight Grant. I would highly recommend this. It's a pretty quick grant to write up and apply for. And you didn't need to be associated with a university. It was a quick grant. So this is the title of it. It's Assessing Arthropod Biodiversity in the Neotropics with a handheld gene sequencer and an origami microscope. So this is something I'm actively pursuing now because it's funded. And I mentioned I'm starting a PhD, so it's at UC Berkeley. And so now I'd like to take sort of what I've learned with photography and science communication and hybridize that with what I'm doing now. So our lab does a lot of really fantastic genetic engineering techniques. This is Parhyele hawaiiensis, and they're studying the Hox genes in it. We're also trying to investigate how butterflies create structural coloration. Here you can see a pupa, and you can actually peer into it. It's like a window into its wing, and we can create time lapses watching the wing develop and structural color develop. And then we have a grant to look at transparency, which will involve more field work in the neotropics. So again, these are all my images, and it helps me learn, and it helps me communicate the work that we're doing. And last but not least, I want to talk about Wired Amazon. So in the beginning, I mentioned to all of you this ecotourism company, right? And so the name is Rainforest Expeditions, and they really have, I think, nailed it down that they should be helping scientists get out to the Amazon because it feeds back into them and into conservation. So I'm really excited about working with them still. I'm going to talk about their 3 primary projects that they're launching, and some of it I've helped initiate. So one of them is flying drones over the Amazon rainforest to do this aerobotany. One of them is setting up camera traps, this big grid to study jaguars, and another is insect light trapping and DNA barcoding. But maybe more importantly, each of these incorporates both ecotourism guests and citizen scientists to help. So I'll explain that in a second. So first off, aerobotany. I was recently out with Joe Hansen. His YouTube channel is It's Okay to Be Smart. You should check that out if you haven't already. So it's really fun getting to, sometimes I bring researchers out, or sometimes I bring writers out, or sometimes we bring people who do YouTube videos or filming. So every single trip is different. That's what keeps this really entertaining. But with the aerobotany part, it's super cool. So we fly drones over the Amazon rainforest and they take high resolution images. And you can actually see when and where trees are flowering or fruiting. So you can study over time the phenology of the rainforest. And this is really difficult to do if you're just walking around the bottom. The canopy's high and you can't study the trees from below. And you can only set up so many of these towers up here, right? So the drone stuff is really, really cool. These will eventually be uploaded to a website called Zooniverse. Maybe some of you have heard of. So you'll actually be able to go online and help, just say like presence or absence of flowers. What's the incentive to this? Well, I think the company is actually going to give you sort of like, credit towards going if you want to like book a trip to the rainforest. So if you support scientists with their research, that can actually give you some sort of discount. I think that's a cool incentive. The second primary project is setting up hundreds of camera traps all over the rainforest, because there are all these big like animals that you never see. So jaguars up here, pumas, tapirs, ocelots, anteaters. These are really, really hard to see, so we set up camera traps to study them. And again, many of these images, like I think with over 100 camera traps, we're going to be generating thousands of images, right? So this will take a lot of time to process. So again, these will be uploaded to a database where citizen scientists can help. Because you can identify jaguars by their spot patterns and sort of map the distribution of individuals. And finally, with insect light trapping and DNA barcoding, I'm really excited about this one. I helped get this off the ground. So if you're not familiar with DNA barcoding, you can actually just look at a single gene called cytochrome oxidase 1, and this can help you resolve species and identify new ones in addition to morphological characteristics. So we're doing a lot of light trapping out in the rainforest. Again, when a guide takes his group out on normal night hikes in the rainforest, they can actually visit some of these light traps and help collect the taxa of interest. And so this is in collaboration right now with Juan Gredos. He's a really, really great moth taxonomist, and already several new species of archaeids have been found, which is, again, not surprising, but this is helping to initiate these studies. And I'm excited about that. If you want to come down and study a group of interest, please, talk to me. So again, I mentioned like I'm studying transparency and Lepidoptera at UC Berkeley, so I'm interested in that group. If you're into ants, if you're into termites, anything, like you can come and do it. Like that's what I want to encourage and help establish. And I want to give one quick shout out to a tropical entomology course I'll be teaching this this December. So there's this organization called fieldprojectsinternational.org, which is helping to help scientists establish 2-week biology courses in the field. And you can get credit for this. And so I hope more things like this pop up. I just wanted to promote this. So Jeff Delis helped get this off the ground. He's another alum from University of Florida. And yeah, so talk to me if you're interested in field work, in any of this. I think it's such an exciting time to be a scientist and to try and create this new model where it's essentially like ecotourism funding scientists so that they can communicate their science. And these can all feed back into each other. And that's the message I wanted to get across to all of you. And it's been so exciting, like randomly like getting into this field. So if there's anything you take away from this, it's just that you can go into these transitions. Like I was just a molecular biologist in a lab into going into the jungle. And I'm really excited looking forward because I think we can create new models where we create a new job essentially for us, where it's a combination of research and outreach. So I'd really like to thank PeruNature.com. So this is the ecotourism company, Rainforest Expeditions, and especially Kurt Hull, who's the owner of this ecotourism company. Like he's an amazing guy helping get this stuff off the ground. I'd also like to thank Nat Geo. Apply for that WAIT grant. It's a really, really good one. And University of Florida and UC Berkeley, like fantastic schools. So I'm on Twitter at Aaron Pomerantz, and then Instagram and my website, Next Gen Scientist. So I'm really just like curious about the future of not only like the tools that we're going to have as scientists, because everything is advancing rapidly, but also how we communicate. So I think social media will be a big factor in that, and I hope that's the message that we've got across today. Thanks.